One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 1, Episode 5 of Apple TV's Dark Matter, entitled Worldless. I want to start by apologizing for how late I'm getting this video out. Last week kind of got away from me, a lot of stuff going on, weekend was kind of crazy. I watched the episode on time, and I just didn't find the time to actually just sit down and record the video, which is actually rare. Usually I can record the video, I can watch the episode. It's the notes in between that kind of slow me down, but I had the notes done. I just didn't get time to record. But while I have you here, I did want to announce real quick, for those of you who just watch generally anything that I put out, I am going to stop doing coverage of Interview with the Vampire Season 2. And it's not because I don't like the show. I'm still going to watch it. It's just that I'm not as into it as I was with Season 1. And again, I've talked about it on this channel a lot of times. It's a lot of work to put one of these videos out. Not just it's not just watching a show. It's watching the show, taking notes during the show, revamping those notes into something that I can do when I get in front of the camera, recording the video, editing the video, posting the video. We're now talking about 3 hours plus of time spent, and I don't mind that with Interview with the Vampire. I enjoyed the show, but it's time spent. It's time well spent when there's nothing else on. June, however, we got The Acolyte starting on the 4th. We have Clipped starting on the 4th. I'm not sure if I'm going to cover The Acolyte. I don't even really know what to expect of it. I'll kind of figure that out once I watch it. But Clipped, I intend on covering. Then we have The Boys in, I don't know if that's next week, but it's either the end of next week or the beginning of the week after that. And then The Bear at the end of the month. There's just too much going on in June for me to dedicate, again, about 3 hours of time per episode to Interview with the Vampire, when I'm not as excited about that. And I have 2 shows that I know that I'm covering that I like, a 3rd show that I'm likely covering, and a 4th that I could end up covering if I enjoy it enough. So, you know, it's just too much stuff to cover, not enough time, and Interview with the Vampire is not making the cut. I haven't even watched the most recent episode yet, so that's why I'm ending it. I'm going to announce that on the Facebook page after I get done recording this video, but I figured now would be a good time to get it out. All right, so now that I'm pissed away 3 minutes on shit that has nothing to do with Dark Matter, let's talk about Dark Matter. So the title here refers to how Blair describes being sort of lost in the multiverse. She says to, I should keep calling her Alice. The Alice thing last week, like, in my head, she looks like an Alice. Her actual name is Alice, and on God, I swear she played Alice instead of someone named Alice and something else. But I don't know. And then I, like, inexplicably resumed calling her Amanda out of nowhere. That was weird. Anyway, she describes the multiverse to Amanda in this way, saying that she's worldless. And she said, "You're not homeless, you're worldless." And if I'm being honest, I feel like that's only actually true if it's out of the question that you can't go back to your original world. She's less like homeless and worldless and more so just left the house. Like, she can still return, and she's not without a home or a world, but that's neither here nor there. It's just me kind of like just noticing something that sounds really cool on paper but isn't technically true, because I feel like nobody really gave that enough thought. Anyway, this episode's funny to me because last week I said that I was worried they weren't going to spend any time checking out various worlds, and I really wanted to see that, and I still do. Now this week, they give me an episode that is virtually entirely world exploration, and I didn't like it. But here's the thing, I didn't like it because this episode felt more like filler than anything else. The story got very little movement in this episode, which made the world exploration feel more like doing it just to do it, rather than using it as a tool to convey information to the important information at that to the audience. Now, I'm not sitting here saying we didn't learn shit, but what I am saying is that given the complex nature of this show and the story it's trying to tell, it felt odd to have such a stagnant episode, particularly when, like I said, you could be using world exploration to help further the story. For example, at the very beginning of the episode, OG Jason essentially tries to fake/force a thought or feeling, and when he opens the door, the box gets flooded with water. Amanda, being the brilliant mind that she is, deduces that you can't fake these emotions to influence the box. And I was just like, I didn't need this scene to know that. Like, maybe Amanda needed this scene to know that because she's a blithering idiot. But she's just a little slow. But the show has already established how any thought or feeling can influence the box. I'd assume you can't trick it. Now, maybe there are a lot of people who watched this episode and were like, that was really fun, exploring these worlds, and it was a nice little break from all the confusing science-y type stuff that they talk about. For me, though, it felt more empty than anything. Like, when the episode was over, I just kind of felt like, that's it? That was it? That's all we got this week? It felt like they spent a lot of time, like, reaffirming things that I already knew, which is why the episode felt more like filler to me. So I want to start by talking about the Blair aspect of this episode. As soon as I learned that New Jason's world had a Blair, which was 1 or 2 episodes ago, it made me wonder if that Blair was the Blair in OG Jason's world. Like, if she had, when she left, she occupied OG Jason's world and maybe replaced their Blair. So, like, the Blair that we had seen in, I think it was episode 1, maybe even 2, that was interacting with Daniela, that wasn't that world's Blair. It was the Blair from New Jason's world. Now, we learned that that wasn't the case in this episode. And I'm not going to deduct points for not living up to my theory or anything like that. I completely made that shit up. Who knows? I thought it was cool, but it wasn't the plan. That's on me. But they found New Jason's Blair with no attention given to how that worked. And it ended up just being this self-contained set of scenes that felt very disconnected from the rest of the show, or the rest of the episode, I should say. They didn't learn anything more about how the box works or what brought her there. They learned that her world was overtaken by some killer bees or some shit. Whoop-de-whoop, but that's it. And more talk of how the mind influences the box. Like, Christ almighty, I fucking got it. I don't need any more examples or any more talk about the impact that the mind has on the box. You also can't lean this heavily into the mind influencing where the box puts you, and then have OG Jason and Amanda wake up from a nap after the drugs have worn off and put them in the same world as this Blair with no explanation as to what happened in the minds of all 3 of them collectively to put them in the same world together, especially with the gap in time. Whatever was going on in Blair's mind at the time that, and we're talking about New World Blair, at the time that she ended up in this killer bee world or whatever, however many months later, now Jason and Amanda have whatever going on in their mind that puts them in that same place with not lacking the knowledge that there was a Blair there in the first place. They couldn't even think, like, maybe Blair's there. No, completely lacking that knowledge. They all end up in the same place, and a show that is leaned so heavily into telling us that the mind influences where the box takes you says, fuck giving them an explanation for that. And, like, that bothered me. They've spared no written expense on reminding us of the influence the mind has over where the doors lead, but then apparently think you can just skip over explaining how the fuck Jason and Amanda ended up in the same world as Amanda's Blair. And as soon as they found Blair, I wrote in my notes, like, I wonder what thoughts and feelings got them here. And the show did fuck all to explain how that happened when it talks nonstop about the mind's influence. Essentially, when I needed an explanation the most, I didn't get it. And I'm not going to keep harping on this point. Let me move on. So, this is also when Blair tells Amanda that she's worldless. And while I'm sure all that sounds super cool on paper, again, that's not even true unless we're working on the assumption that they can't go back to the original worlds. And if that's the case, no one told Jason and Amanda because that's exactly what they're trying to do. So, I mean, that's obviously not the case. So, Blair tells them that she has vials that would allow her to go back. But she's essentially scared to go back in the box because it was just too much for her to control. And again, we're beating a dead horse at this point. I don't need to keep being told about the mind's influence on the box. Just keep moving. Just like I didn't need more examples of New Jason being worried being weird in OG Jason's world. Like, I don't need episode after episode of examples of how difficult it is to control the box. Just like I didn't need example after example of New Jason being weird in OG Jason's world. I get it. Let's figure out how to control the fucking box and move this story the fuck forward. And briefly, that is what happens. When they get back into the box, Jason has the brilliant idea of writing down his desires. He says you can't think about something different while you're writing something else. And I love this idea because I utilize that to a degree. I just utilize it in a slightly different way. It helps me remember things. If I'm writing something down, it just helps me retain it better because I have to focus on the thing that I'm writing. Any other way of learning, my brain gets too distracted. So I'm like, oh, now we're getting somewhere. That's a great idea. And for all intents and purposes, that should work. But that's where the episode starts to kind of undermine a lot of what it's built so far. What has been our main thesis so far, folks? That the subconscious mind can influence where the box sends you, right? Right. So why the fuck is Amanda injecting herself with the drug while she's clearly in a frantic state? And why did Jason not say in response, what the fuck is wrong with you, Amanda? Why are you so fucking stupid? Like, why do I have to keep explaining to you over and over and over and over how the fuck the box works, Amanda? It was just maddening. She looked terrified, admitted that she was not okay when asked, talked about their lives being destroyed and how shocked she is that her Jason is a bad guy, and she's just like, I just want to go. And just starts injecting herself. You have learned nothing, Amanda, nothing. And neither have these writers, because that is completely fucking ridiculous to have a character this goddamn stuck on fucking stupid. It's so irritating. Like, these are the kinds of scenes that ruin shows for me. Like, you've explained over and over and over and over and over how the fuck the box works. Jason has a great idea, but then you have your stupid fucking character who's meant to just cause conflict, and you don't even care about how plausible her behavior is, or their behavior. Anytime it's a character like that in the show, and people love to write those kinds of characters in the shows because they're too lazy to come up with actual well thought out and plausible courses of action. They need some character behaving implausibly to just be like, let's just propel us in this direction now. Hey everybody, I just want to take a small break from this review to talk about the various other ways you can engage with me on other platforms. If you're so inclined, and I understand why you wouldn't, I am an acquired taste, but you can join the Patreon where you can get extra content like retro reviews, where I review old shows and movies to see if they still hold up today. Mike's Musings, where I talk about shows I'm watching that I don't cover on the channel, or Mike's VOD, where you can commission me to watch a show, which I will then review on the channel. And if you want to engage with me and chat with me more directly, I also implore you to join the Discord and follow the Facebook page. I set up channels in the Discord for all of us to discuss the shows I'm reviewing on the channel, and I also drop new videos in there since it's the easiest platform for me to share to from my phone. The Facebook can be really fun because I sort of live comment on shows I'm watching, often while under the influence, I'm not going to lie. And I'll also share news there, both about television and film, and about myself as well. So if you like my content, you want to be more engaged, you think I'm charming, or you simply want to show support, feel free to sign up for the Patreon or join the Discord or Facebook today. Links to all platforms are in every video description. Remember to share all my shit to your respective social media platforms. And now back to this review. Anyway, they emerge into a world that looks like Jason's world, but it doesn't have any people. This is my kind of place. At this point, I'm starting to wonder why so many of the worlds that we've seen so far have been these dystopian, apocalyptic type worlds. Like, am I to believe that's the only thing the characters think about, or am I to believe that's the only kind of world that the writers can imagine? And I'm leaning heavily toward the latter. Like, I cannot imagine that they have a valid explanation for this. Like, why do we end up in all the kind of the same kind of world? Maybe we're all thinking about the same. Like, I don't think this sounds so insulting. I don't think this show is that smart. I think that that's all they can think of is like various apocalyptic type worlds. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. So this world that they emerge in is, of course, one that's been stricken by a deadly virus because, again, these writers have the imaginations of an 8-year-old. But I can't imagine a less creative idea than let's send them to a world where everyone has died of a virus. Like, that might be the least imaginative idea they could have come up with. But good God almighty, does Jennifer Connelly save this miserable fucking scene with her incredible acting. The scene works so well because we know this isn't new Jason's Daniela. And Jason knows that. I'm sorry, this isn't new Jason. Old Jason. Sorry, OG Jason. This isn't his Daniela, and he knows that, but she doesn't know that that's not her Jason. Not for sure anyway. She says, like, oh, they took you away to die. So the weight of having to stare down the barrel of having to kill yourself when your husband, who you thought was dead, has just reappeared and has offered no explanation for it. And she looks so sick. It was just a really well-executed scene from Jennifer Connelly's standpoint. Like, I wrote down in my notes that by this point in the episode, there was only 15 minutes left and we'd accomplished next to nothing. We went into these various worlds, learned little to nothing, and while we've been beating the dead horse that is our minds influence the box, We've spent no time on how they keep ending up at the same type of world, or how new Jason has like precision light control of the box, or how Amanda can just completely not abide by the rules that the show has established, and the show just pretends like that's not the case when they want it to. It's what I've said before. These are the sorts of things that great shows don't fuck up and that they give the proper attention to. Shows that are just like, I'm watching this right now and it's cool. That's the kind of stuff that they fuck up. So Amanda asks Jason why/how he brought them to this world with all of these things. All of this desolation, the dying Daniela world. And on the surface, that's a really good question. Like, what the fuck did you write down that brought us into this world? But also, that question was just another reminder of how the work of the writers is leaving a lot to be desired. I guess they forgot about the part where they told us that all the people inside the box can influence where it sends you. We had the whole scene of new Jason teaching Layton to essentially meditate so that his subconscious can't interfere with when Jason opened the door. And now here we are in the very next episode having the stupidest character on the show ask Jason why he sent them to that world, which she's constantly injecting herself with drugs while in a panicked state. Like, forgetting that, okay, it's not just Jason that has influence here. And I'm not even suggesting Amanda is influencing the world. All I'm saying is that the writers failed to consider a fact that they told us in just the last fucking episode by having Amanda put the responsibility on Jason for the world that they ended up in. And it's just like I'm paying more attention to making sure that you are keeping everything neat and tidy than you are. She's like, I think that world taught us a lot about how the box works. Bitch, you ain't learned a goddamn thing about how the fuck the box works in this entire season. You keep learning about the box because you have a memento-like short-term memory, so you keep learning the same fucking fact over and over and over, Amanda. Then just to add a little pizzazz to the episode, we get a quick scene in a world where like Jason is in prison for something and Daniela and Charlie hate him. It was a complete waste, whatever. I don't even know what that was there for. Like, just throw in another fucking world. Here we are. At least it's not an apocalyptic one. But I wonder what crime Jason committed for half a second until I remember that this episode had already established the pointlessness of these scenes. So I was like, it doesn't matter what crime he did. We're never going to see this guy again. The last world we visit is the best one of all, one where Amanda is dead. Unfortunately, it's the one we spend the least amount of time in, and the majority of the dialogue was in Spanish with no subtitles. Bravo, Dark Matter, bravo. We also got a few scenes of new Jason and Layton as well, and those didn't do much either. They start with a moment where Layton asks Jason about the craziest world that he's ever been in, and he describes Mad Max and then makes a joke about Tina Turner being an actor in this world. And then he laughs like, just fucking with you. But I wasn't sure if he was fucking with him about Tina Turner being an actress in that world, or if he's completely unfamiliar with Mad Max or not. Like, I don't know. But again, not the best written episode. The most important thing that we learn in these scenes and in this episode as a whole is that they don't have access to the entire multiverse, just worlds directly adjacent to their own. Like, 1 degree of Kevin Bacon. I don't know how that's going to come into play or even if it's going to come into play, but that felt like useful information. I don't know. But then I was also confused by why they injected themselves with the drug again. They being new Jason and, what is for us new Layton, but is old Layton. I made a big deal about how they drank it last time, and I'm like, new Jason's much more advanced with the box technology. He can go wherever he wants, and he just drinks the fucking drugs. But then we're right back to injecting it with no explanation of how they drank it the first time or why they have to go back to injecting it. It's just like, I care about these minor details more than the writers do. And what do I always say on this channel, and I said it already earlier in this video, it's these minor details that separate a good show from a great one. So the episode ends with new Jason going back to his world to retrieve vials, since Layton said he would pay $1 million per vial, but he learns that OG Jason is looking for him and states that he's going to seal up the box in OG Jason's world alone. That sounds like a good episode for next week. But at the end of this one, I'm left with the depressing realization that the criticisms of the book are likely starting to manifest on the show. Like, lots of writing issues this week. Lots of things to give me cause for concern. A watchable episode. I didn't not like it. It's just, again, we're beating a dead horse with the explanations of how the box works, but then we're undermining those explanations with our stupid fucking character Amanda, and it's just the things that are bothering me are starting to pile up. But let me know what you thought in the episode in the comments. Let me know what you thought about my fairly aggressive hard take on this episode. And until I can't even say next week, until later this week, peace.